Welcome to Spotlight. I'd like to welcome today to MEA the Chief of Police, Dearborn Chief of Police, Ronald Hadad. It's great to have you today, and how are you?
Fine, Hanan. It's great to be with you.
Okay, so how does it feel? You've been serving the community for 45 years. You have a distinguished career in law enforcement.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate. You know, I did 34 years in Detroit before I came to Dearborn, and 8 of those years I spent in the 11th Precinct, which had East 7 Mile in the Chaldean community and the Lebanese community that was on the Hamtramck border.
Yes.
So I worked there for 8 years, and I was the first Homeland Security Coordinator post 9/11 for the whole city. So I've been pretty fortunate to have some pretty interesting jobs.
Yeah, I mean, we are a melting pot of culture in the Metro Detroit area. And, you know, Metro Detroit holds the largest population of Arab and Chaldean, you know, outside of the Middle East. I'd like to tackle with you some of the issues that the community maybe face. Maybe we should talk first about drug overdose, opioid epidemic, and you know, it's a major epidemic, and thousands of people are dying every year from this. How, in your opinion, how do we break the stigma of, you know, what do you call it, shame-based culture, and maybe empower parents to talk with their kids about this major epidemic?
Yeah, certainly that's the #1 topic, and I feel that's the #1 threat to our country and our society. They have reported that 800% increases in drug overdoses in our country over the last 3 years.
Yes.
I think there's like a shameful 122 veterans die every day from drug overdoses. These are veterans that come back after serving the country. So without question, it is, I think, the biggest threat. And I tell you what won't work. We cannot arrest our way out of it. So it's going to take the entire community, the faith-based community, the health and human services community. The schools play a very important role in awareness and education and training.
Yes.
And so does the police. We're still going to arrest people that are distributing the narcotics and have large quantities, because that puts other people at risk. But I can tell you, on one corner in the 70s, I locked up 3,000 people for heroin, and it didn't change a darn thing. So
Nothing.
Nothing. And I was thinking, okay, they're going to all fall out. They're going to all want to go to rehab. It didn't work. So we cannot arrest our way out of it. And it is a social crisis, and it's a social addiction, and it's very complicated. So to get out in front of it, awareness, you mentioned some people don't recognize it or they're ashamed. Well, they better recognize it, because it's not shame. It's going to kill people. And I can tell you, just yesterday our officers administered Narcan to a young man in his 30s, and he's got one more opportunity at life now. But what's essential is that he gets that support service after, because we're not going to be that lucky every time.
Right, and I know like a lot of organizations and nonprofit organizations are doing these initiatives, you know, to spread awareness about this, but at the same time, we see there is still increasing in number. So whose fault is that?
You know, I think it's beyond blaming, but I think the medical profession has a great responsibility to better diagnose and control the amount of opiates that they legally, and I say legally, put out in the community.
Okay.
And you know, then once you get addicted, they start shopping around for doctors, and when that runs out, then they go to the street sales and the illicit drugs. So I think our medical professionals have to be in front of this to warn people. You know,
are they doing that, though?
No, you know, not in all cases. Some doctors will not prescribe it.
Some good doctors.
Right. Good.
Yes.
Most of them are good, but people shop around, and then sometimes they get caught. I had a parent tell me that her young son, 14 years old, went to the doctor for a pain in the knee, and he gave him 150 pain pills. And I said, my goodness. So I actually called that doctor, and I says, look, I'm not going to tell you who told me, but what message are you giving these people? Well, we're trying to save them cost and deductibles and this and that. I said, but if you took 150 pills at the age of 14,
What are you going to take when you're
you're going to be addicted.
That's it. That's it.
I said, and you know what's troubling to me, Doc, is that I asked her, did this young kid need surgery or a cast, or he just got a knee sprain.
So nothing like that.
Nothing major.
So how do you deal with this? I mean, how can you deal with
Well,
doctors like
you know,
that?
we've partnered with our federal agencies, the Drug Administration, and they have a way of monitoring these, and I'm not going to get into it because we want to make sure that we give every advantage to law enforcement, but we have a way of monitoring where these prescriptions are being written and redeemed and so on. And they've been fairly effective at shutting some doctors down, but it's a long...
They are?
Yes.
That's good
But
to
it's
know.
a long process. We
Yeah.
had one in Dearborn last year, and it was highly publicized. I think he issued 1,000 times more opiates in that first quarter of that year than any other doctor.
Okay.
Millions of pills. So we took him down, but it came with a price. A lot of people got addicted during that
So
time.
it's all basically about money.
It's about money.
It's about money.
That's
crazy.
it. It's money. And you know, I don't want to be one of these real suspicious minds. This country has basically put the Mexican and South American marijuana cartel out of business because they've legalized marijuana.
Right.
Medical marijuana in Michigan
Yeah.
has put the Mexican cartel out of business.
Yeah.
So, they're business people. I believe they induced more opiates into our society because they lost the money somewhere else. That's just my belief.
It's frustrating. I've seen the devastation of this through my work here. I've seen families, and hopefully, I mean, we're trying, you know, as much as we can through the TV to spread awareness, and hopefully, we'll fight this, and you know, we'll beat this.
Right, and you know, I find it ironic that they put Narcan, and I'm glad they did, but they
Okay.
put Narcan over the counter, and some of the pain pills or some of the sinus tablets, you got to go and get a prescription for. They're hid behind
And
the
they
counter.
ask for ID, you know, for those things,
Right.
you know.
So, you know, I find that to be an irony.
Yeah.
And I think it's, like you said, you follow the money. And thank God they did put it over the counter. And it doesn't have any other effect other than to reverse the overdose of opiates. And,
Yeah.
you know, one more point about opiates, you find more suicide deaths that are related to drug overdoses today more than ever before in our country.
Yes.
And
Isn't
yet-
it like one of the, like number one?
Number one killer of young people from 16 to 23 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
There's more people, young people dying on our college campuses where their lives are supposed to be just getting started.
And
Yeah.
they end up with
They end
addiction.
up addiction or suicide, which is driven by the addiction.
Absolutely, yes.
So it's a huge problem. It's going to take a holistic approach by our entire country to deal with it.
Yes.
But I want to remain eternally optimistic that we will
We
get
hope
on
so.
top of it.
Yeah, we have to be optimistic.
Yeah. We have
about
no
that.
choice. We gotta do it.
No choice, absolutely. And I'd like to talk to you about crimes in the community, and what are the most common crimes that are happening now?
You know, in the city of Dearborn, we've reduced crime 40% since I got there, and that's for a lot of reasons.
That's amazing.
We've used our high technology, which wasn't being used very effective in the past. We've engendered community trust where our citizens readily and repeatedly report crime, and we also warn them about crime trends. Anything from catalytic converter thieves to stealing from cars to breaking into garages in the summertime.
So is it like a programs that you
They're-
guys offer?
Yeah,
Or,
they're
okay.
early warning systems. We have something called NIXO where 18,000 of our citizens signed up for it. And if there's any kind of crime trend in their neighborhood, we blast these 18,000 people.
Oh, that's
We use our
amazing.
cable TV and we use all our social media as effectively as time will permit. And we don't hide crime. Sometimes people say, oh man, Dearborn's got a lot of crime. I've never seen it like this. But the reality is we have less crime, but because we're so transparent with it,
Right.
they know.
So basically, you rely on technology, and at the same time, do you like, in your opinion, do you think we should put more police officers on the street in order, you know, to maybe reduce the crime rate?
In some places, I think that would be helpful. Detroit, for example, their numbers keep going down, but our community, they've sponsored and paid for every millage, and we're fully staffed. And we have one of the highest per capita with police to citizen ratio. So,
Yeah.
so you
Yeah.
know, we're very well funded and well staffed. But If I were to get 10 more, I wouldn't complain. But I know we have to be fiscally responsible, and I have like a $40 million budget out of $100 million. So the people of this city pay very well for their police service, and I'm committed to make sure that I give them every penny's worth with that money.
Yeah, I have to ask about what's the expected response time for like non-violent crime in your area?
Under 4 minutes.
Okay, non-violent and violent.
Violent, 1 to 3 minutes.
Okay, and about the emergency, like to call 911, I have to tell you a personal story in Dearborn. One time I was coming home from work and I see the door was opened, the front door, and I got so scared, I don't want to get in. So I called 911, and within like minutes, 5 officers were at my door, and I was so thrilled. I have to mention this on TV. The service was amazing, you know, I felt really safe, you know.
And that happens most of the time. Is there that off time when the officer, like when we have slippery streets and there's accidents everywhere, you may wait a little longer to get a car, travel time and so on, but that's usually the case. And that goes right back to what I told you, that we're fully staffed, and the people of Dearborn pay millages and taxes, and they demand that superior service. So I'm glad it worked out for me
I
as well.
learned that offhand, so that's really great. You know, people say that police can't function without people's trust and community trust and support. Tell me about this.
Yeah, you know, you have to build trust in the community, and you can't wait for a serious incident to occur. So that's an everyday process.
Yeah.
One thing that I've learned through all my years of service is that nothing erodes trust more than the perception that you're violent with your community, the excessive use of force. There was a time when we talk about police brutality and we had no vision of what it looked like. And you know, people would tend to give the police the benefit of the doubt. But now when they see these very limited but very violent actions by police officers brutalizing people, now they can associate an image with the words.
Right.
So right now, the country demands that we be far more civil with our encounters, and we have no problem with that. I can tell you that we've led the nation with de-escalation. We don't go hands-on very often with people. Again, we're well-trained and well-staffed, so we've taught our officers how to de-escalate. And then the other part that is very important to the building of trust is to involve the community with the problem. So when we have issues, we don't just take it upon ourselves to respond. We let them know. We go to community groups. Right now we're doing workshops throughout the city on active shooter responses.
Yeah.
And I said, our hope is that you never have to live through it, but even if this is happening somewhere in the city, you need to understand the dynamics. But we've trained senior citizen establishments. Just the other day we did William Ford Middle School. We've done Ford Motor Company, the malls, the mosques, you name it, we've done an exercise there. So we want them to know and have a hand in their own public safety, and I think that the community has responded very well.
Yeah.
Another place I've engaged them, prior to this administration, I served on 5 or 6 federal task forces. President Obama put me on Homeland Security, countering violent extremism, the Foreign Fighter Phenomena Task Force, and a number of others. Bias-free training with police.
Right.
And I would always come back and not just give Washington my opinion, but I would impanel all these community groups, including young people, and say, what do you think about these set of questions? And we'd capture it.
That's a great way
and then
to do it, yeah.
When we sent our recommendations back, it wasn't just me talking. I said, our community feels this way or that way. And
the community appreciate that for sure.
And they have buy-in up front, so then when the program comes back and we lead the nation, they've contributed to it. So all those things build trust between the police and the community. And again, respect is a two-way street. So citizens respect us, we respect them.
It's just vice versa.
Yeah, it's a good combination.
Yeah, and I have to ask you, under what circumstances can police, like, use physical force,
You know, if if the physical force or the threat of aggression is escalating, then we have to come with equal amount of force to set it down. But again,
To what extent, like,
yeah. Well,
when do you draw like the line?
well, if you ask yourself the question, can we contain the situation, and is there anything we can do to de-escalate it? We've trained very hard on mental illness because you're not going to get that normal response from people. We've trained hard on drug and alcohol responses, even things like autism. Sometimes you can set off a young person or an older person by not knowing that. We've had our citizens go on a special needs register to let us know where these people with special needs live.
That's a great idea.
And that way, when you call 911, whether it's fire, police, or rescue, we know that there's something going on. And that includes people that can't see, people that can't hear, people that have poor mobility. So
you do your studies.
we do our study, and we let citizens report that, and we never abuse that, you know. So if we go to a home and you can't get to the door in time, and we knock at the door, and you don't come, what's the normal response? They're not here. But if we know that they have a mobility issue, then we're going to wait. And if we don't get an answer soon enough, we might force entry.
Yeah, but the reason I'm asking, we hear a lot of stories about cops, you know, they can abuse, you know, their job and, you know, their authority to do a lot of things like that, you know, the physical force and all that. So that's why I was asking about that. But it's good to clarify, you know.
Right, I'm
things.
proud of our record, you know.
Yeah.
We respond to 70,000 runs, we write 40,000 tickets a year, we arrest 7,000 people.
Yeah.
And we probably use what I call gentle, hands-on force 30 times. I go in front of police chiefs and I'm hard-pressed to explain it. I said, we just have dedicated people, well-trained, and I said, we as leaders have to set the right policies. And I saw just overnight, California just issued some law about de-escalation and the use of force for police that they deem appropriate.
De-escalation.
Yes.
Okay.
And the law hasn't been touched since the late 1700s. So right now the police are very upset in California. But when I looked at the law, our standards are higher than that law. So if they were to change that law here or implement it, we're compliant.
Yeah.
So I'm proud of the men and women at the Dearborn Police Department because they're well trained and they've learned how to deal with our community. And it's not easy. They take between 300 and 400 weapons off the street every year with virtually no incident. And that's a very tall order.
Of course, yeah, and we're very proud of you,
Thank
guys.
you.
And what can be done to eliminate racial profiling? What can more be done?
You know, again, understanding, and sometimes a citizen may think they're profiled, so just being a little patient, explain to them. I can tell you that we get a lot of, not a lot of complaints, a few complaints, but we have full body cams on our officers. And 99.9% of the time, what the citizen is alleging is not accurate. So
It's not.
no, we find out that, you know, they've exaggerated or they're just mad.
How is that?
You know, they don't always tell the truth, you know.
Okay,
They just, they're mad about being stopped. Even in instances where somebody didn't get a ticket, they called to say how bad they were treated. Well, it's all captured on video. They weren't treated bad at all.
So it's like over-exaggerated
Yeah, you know,
somehow.
they feel a great indignity just to be stopped by the police for some reason.
Okay, okay.
And see,
you get that.
And we get that,
get
and
that.
I get that. And you know, we train on how to stop people, but people never train on how to respond if the police stop them. And 2 minutes before they get stopped, I'm sure that I was the furthest thing from their mind, you know?
Sure.
So I understand it, and you know, we're not overly harsh with them. But we let them know, hey, listen, come and look at the tape for yourself, and it's not quite the way you displayed it, but it's okay.
It's okay. Well, throughout your career, what aspect of your job that has affected you probably the most?
I think it took me a while to learn this, but the vast majority of people are willing to work with the police and with their cities for the same thing, keep the city safe. In Detroit, for example, I knocked on doors for the Angels Night and the cleanup campaigns and all that. And I remember being in the area of Finkel, and I saw these retirees sitting on a porch on a Saturday morning. And you know, they had a little bottle in a paper bag, and they were just minding their own business. So I went up there and said, did you ever volunteer for Angels Night? And they said no. So I got to talking to them. They're retired UAW postal workers and that kind of thing. You know, nice people.
Right.
And I said, why, you've lived in Detroit all your life, why haven't you ever volunteered? The answer was nobody ever asked us.
Oh.
I signed them all up. One porch, 7 volunteers for that Angels
That's
Night.
great.
Turn your lights on. So again, when you engage the community, and I learned that quick in my career, early, but it was a lesson that I didn't anticipate.
Yeah.
And most of the citizens can be brought along to be part of the
So
solution.
basically, if you don't ask, you don't get like responses.
Right.
Is that what it is?
Right.
Like how to engage the community and stuff.
And you can't wait for that crisis to happen. That's the wrong time to try to make a friend.
Right.
You
yeah.
can't wait for the crisis to happen. That's the wrong time to
Right.
make the friend.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
as long as you reach out to the community on a regular basis, you let them know the services that are available, you let them know that they're an equal and important part of the public safety mission. My experience has been over a lot of years that that's going to get the best results.
Yes, yes. That's great. And I have to mention over 2,000 kids are held in federal custody. And now President Donald Trump, you know, he signed the executive order, you know, to end family separation. How do you feel about what's going on right now?
You know, first of all, I want to go on record to say that I'm a humanitarian.
Okay.
And I don't think that anybody has a right to traumatize kids, and you should at all costs avoid that. So I applaud President for passing this executive order. I can also tell you that from the immigration end, I've served on federal task forces where I feel there should be a path to legal citizenship. I served on the Biden Commission for both gun and immigration reform. And it's always been a political stalemate and an obstructionist, field day.
Okay.
But I think as a nation, we should try to fix that. And I totally dismiss the fact that there's some assertion that there's these illegals here that are committing all the crime and, you know, getting away with it.
But these people are not, they're illegal, they're immigrants, but they're not illegal immigrants,
No,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. They
Yeah.
may have a visa that's expired or whatever and haven't met some condition.
Yeah.
And, you know, of course, the people coming at the Mexican border, that's a whole different issue. And what they don't want to say is that the California economy, half the Arizona economy, Wyoming and other places, they're dependent on these workers.
Okay.
They are dependent. I had the people out in California tell me that if they were to stop all these workers from coming into the state, within 3 months their economy would be shattered.
And the labor is cheaper, right? That way.
Yeah,
I believe so.
the labor is cheaper, and
Yeah.
and if they did have American workers to do it, it'd probably cost more, and then
lot of money,
your
yeah.
price of apples and oranges would go up to about $9 a pound or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
So, you know, we do have a dependency on one another, and they're not here committing crimes, because when somebody commits a crime, local police go after that person. It doesn't matter. It's not the first question we ask. Are they citizens? Are they not?
Yeah.
We go after them. So that's just a scare tactic. So I would say that the nation has a responsibility to find a legal way to put people on the path to citizenship. And I know that in my life, we've had relatives that we sponsored to come here, and it is a long, painful process,
It is.
including my mother, who came here in 1950 as a young lady married to my dad, who was a World War II veteran. So I remember the pain of getting on the buses and going downtown, and it was a
So
long...
you've experienced
Right, it's a long
that,
process. And
yeah.
then we had relatives that came here, and we had to, you know, sponsor them. And it, you know, we had the means to do it, but there was a lot of personal sacrifice, and some people may not have that. And, you know, just like joining the military puts you on a faster pace to citizenship, I think that when these people come here and get educated, and they're PhDs and they're research experts in a lot of fields, and then the next thing you know, you're sending them back to some foreign land. We've invested in those people's education,
Right.
and I think that we should benefit from that.
Absolutely.
And so there's some
I agree.
selfishness there.
Right. I agree. I agree. Now we have to talk about Dearborn and how good Dearborn is.
Yeah, I think Dearborn is a very remarkable city. It's a historic city. Sometimes people that haven't visited there will try to say something bad about it, but it's a very modern, progressive city.
And cultural.
Culturally rich. You can go to stores, bakeries, and restaurants, one every day for the rest of your life and not hit them all.
Yeah.
And
best food.
best food. They're competitive.
Yeah.
And
they're welcoming.
And they're welcoming. And you know, when I get these international groups come in, I take them to the West End and I point out this one neighborhood where the starter homes are $1.2 million, and that shocks them.
Yeah.
I have journalists from Washington come and they see that and they're shocked by that. I said, what are you looking for? Ford Motor Company? You got these museums, you got this, you got that.
Yeah.
I said, what were you expecting?
So not a lot of people are aware of
Yeah,
this.
they think that it's a backward city, a third world nation of some sort, because they view that it's all immigrants and nothing happening.
Yeah.
Nothing further from the truth. Property values have tripled after the recession, both residential and commercial. You can't get a piece of property in Dearborn.
Yeah, it's getting expensive here.
Our schools are fully attended, 22,000 plus. They had to rearrange some of the districting within the city to better accommodate the masses.
Right.
We have 3 or 4 major colleges in our city. It's just a wonderful, wonderful place. And
it's safe. That's
and
the
it's
most
safe.
important
thing,
to mention. It is very safe.
It is very safe.
Yeah, and thanks to you guys for that.
Right. We have a small part in it, but we're going to do what we need to do. But the city is safe, and compliance and safety basically is based on the goodwill of the people. And I wish they would drive a little better in Dearborn, because sometimes we're all distracted. We have a huge group of young people that...
It's the cell phone.
Yeah, it is.
That's the problem, I
It
think.
really is. It's a big problem. And we're going to try to keep educating them and writing tickets when we have to. And parents have a great responsibility when they give a young person a car or a motorcycle. Person's never driven those big cars before. They're not stunt drivers.
Yeah, that's a major issue.
It's a major issue, and it's a major concern for their safety.
Yeah.
And I want to knock on wood. I don't even want to say it, but we haven't had any fatalities lately, because thank God, because we've gone on a huge, huge awareness campaign.
In regard to that.
Yes, and we've displayed some tough love. When somebody's racing out on Ford Road or Michigan, and we see them next to each other, we confiscate the cars. And we arrest them for $500.
I think that's a good way, yeah.
Trying to save their lives.
Yes,
It's not negotiable. And if their parents thought it was a good idea to buy them those machines, let them bring $500 to the police station.
Sure,
and
sure.
at least take their young person home in one piece.
Well, you have to do something,
Right.
That's great. I want to thank you, Chief Ronald Hadad, for today and for coming out here to MEA TV and enlighten us about all these things. And thank you for keeping our community safe through your dedication and your hard work, So thank you.
Thank you, Hanan. It's a privilege sitting here with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
And that's it for Spotlight. This is Hanan Skaf. Thank you for watching.